Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today we're going to be going over the latest edition of Doctor Who magazine issue 592. I apologise that my face is still a little bit red, I'm still recovering from the sunburn, I'm using some aloe vera, hopefully it'll be gone in the next few days, but you're going to have to deal with it for just a little bit longer. But with that said, let's get right into it. Also feel free to subscribe if you do enjoy the content. We're literally almost at like 20,400, which is insane. So if anyone subscribes watching this video, we'll probably make it over that. But with that said, let's get into the video. First of all, just want to say the subscriber cover is really nice. It's Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor in a promo picture to celebrate the countdown of episode rankings for the 60th anniversary. We're on the Ninth Doctor now. So yeah, really nice cover. Just wanted to say that right off the bat. We get a little write-up from Marcus about the sort of pre-build-up to Series 1 and the Ninth Doctor, which is very fitting for this issue. And then we get a little write-up on Mel's return, Bonnie's return, with a new promotional picture, as well as Lenny Rush joining the cast. Both were announced recently. However, the thing I really want to highlight is the letter from the showrunner segment, because there's a few interesting little tidbits in here that I really want to highlight. So I'm going to read this over. Obviously, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I still want you guys to go buy the magazine. I'm just picking out the bits that I find interesting. 5 months to go, and the Doctor Who factory is steaming, rattling, thundering ahead. Warp, warp. We're at peak output right now. All 5 blocks in production with 8 regular episodes, plus 4 specials in varying states of readiness. Not one of them is completed yet. Special 1, the Star Beast, is almost done. Music done, tick. Grade done, tick. VFX done, tick. But we haven't finished the title sequence yet. I find that really, really interesting. This was probably written a couple of months ago, so perhaps the title sequence is done now, but it's also interesting that music is done, so Murray Gold's score for the first episode is done, which is hugely exciting. While at the other end of production, episode 8, which contains the words Kingdom, Gold, and Tigella, hasn't had a single second shot yet, and there isn't time to pause, as we leap onto the 2025 season. Right now, 4 scripts are being written simultaneously, including this one right here in front of me, which you won't see until the year after next. It contains the words garden, firmament, and diploma, and yet there's time to pause, like that bit on a roller coaster where you pause gently at the top before plunging back down, screaming in abject horror. So this is a little moment to stop, to look around, to admire the view. My god, episode 3 is so good. He then goes on to recount a really lovely story about a message he received from a fan about Rose, specifically the burping bin, which I think is really, really sweet story. There's another quote, though, that I want to actually mention. He mentions how many DMs he gets from fans on Instagram, and he makes mention of a certain line which I found really interesting. DMs are impossible in my job, so many of them. I open the request from strangers once in a while, but only when my eyebrows are bothering me because the white-hot ferocity of DMs scorches right off. Roar goes the furnace, scream goes me, slam goes the door, and I seal them off for another year. I get a glimpse of messages saying bring back Nyssa, usually accompanied by that curious aphorism, Doctor Who is all about change, which is a funny thing to say about a 60-year-old show, but there you go, slam, closed, no more. So I think this is interesting because it kind of reads to me, and obviously I don't want to put words in RTD's mouth, as kind of a response to a lot of the fan backlash, or, you know, admittedly a small backlash, but there is some backlash to Russell T Davies coming back and show needing to change and move forward, and oh, you're bringing back Tennant for an anniversary and all this. This seems to be his response, in that inherently, while Doctor Who changes a lot, it is also a 60-year-long franchise, and elements of it are always inevitably going to repeat. That, to me, makes sense, and yeah, it's just really interesting to hear him address that, and I also think the framing of it being with fans calling for Nyssa to return kind of shows the impossible task of pleasing Doctor Who fandom, in so much as we all want different things out of the show, so it's pretty much impossible to please us all. So yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting little point that was made there. We then get the production diary with Scott Hancock, and there are a couple of bits I want to highlight here. Mainly, the 3rd of May, he says, with prep continuing on Block 5, watermark scripts are posted to a very special guest star for the climactic Series 1 finale. So the interesting part there, to me, is that he refers to presumably Series 14 as Series 1, and I find that interesting because I saw a lot of people speculating that maybe this would indicate maybe a restarting of the numbering. I think, honestly, that's just what happens when new production teams take over. They they internally refer to it as Series 1. Same went for the Chibnall team, and if you go back and look at promotional images for Series 5, it also said Series 1. So I think that's just to do with when a new team takes over, they kind of reset the count because it's the first series that they are producing. So I don't think that means much. However, with that being said, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of perhaps a new subtitled series in the vein of something like Flux, because I feel as though that kind of, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too there. You don't have the somewhat daunting number of 14 for new fans necessarily, but, you know, long-term fans also get to refer to it as Series 14. So you get to kind of have a bit of both there. He talks a little bit about the Eurovision trailer and various other bits and bobs, but the other thing I wanted to point out was on the 24th of May, our last recce day of the series, kicking off in Barry, quick cup of coffee before heading back to Cardiff to explore some brand new set builds. And there's actually a picture of the Millennium Stadium, or the Principality Stadium, I should say. So that seems to confirm what the Doctor Who Filming Locations Twitter account has been saying, that this weekend there'll be some filming at the Millennium Stadium, which makes a lot of sense. I'm also just realising now that I didn't even talk about the fact that we're already 4 scripts into the 2025 season, and it's just really cool seeing how ahead the team are. I've done a video before talking about how long I think Ncuti will stay, and I'm seeing some people say maybe they're sort of backlogging them because he's only going to do 2. Personally, I think the more likely theory, and I've seen a few people sort of suggest this, is that they're doing these 2 now so he has the time to do other things and also get another series of Doctor Who out within the following year after 2025. I think that makes a lot of sense because Ncuti's career is it's exploding, you know, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They also make mentions of Jamie Donahue in this segment, which I find really nice because I actually met the guy and he was lovely. We then get a write-up on Doom. Now, I'm largely going to leave the Doom stuff for its own separate video because I want to cover the story as it goes on. I don't know whether to do it as all one big video or as, I guess, like a series of separate ones. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to cover it yet, but I do want to cover it just because I'm curious. But I think this magazine at the end does contain hours 2, 3, 4, 5 in a magazine, which I've got to say, whilst I'm not against that, you know, it's kind of making it more accessible for fans who perhaps don't have as much disposable income. I do wonder, like, obviously because it's this multimedia event, if half of the story is kind of either already in the magazine or, you know, hour 1 was free on the website. I'm not really sure where the, like, additional revenue comes from. Obviously, I know there's audios and there's going to be other things, but I don't know. It's interesting. I don't mind, though, because, like I say, you know, it's giving me an opportunity to actually, you know, see this stuff without having to pay a bajillion pounds to follow it all in the vein of something like Time Lord Victorious, which I just didn't commit to. We then get a brief write-up on the 60th anniversary Doctor Who poll, and yeah, it's interesting because Remembrance of the Daleks is voted the best 7th Doctor story, which makes sense. Somewhat surprised to see the Happiness Patrol in 7th. I feel like that should be higher, personally. Or at the very least above Battlefield. And as for the Series 1 ranking, I think it's pretty accurate. I'd probably put Dalek a little bit higher. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty accurate to how I would probably rank it. Although I'd probably put the Unquiet Dead below the End of the World and Boomtown. But that's just me. Boomtown is probably a bit too low, in my opinion. We get another sort of write-up on a member of the crew, which I think is really, really cool. This time, it's John Erasmus, storyboard artist for the forthcoming Doctor Who Festive episode, which I think is really, really cool. He was also storyboard artist for various of the Series 11 episodes, including, I believe, The Ghost Monument, which is really, really neat. And I'm loving how in each of these issues they're like highlighting another aspect of production. I think that's just really, really nice. Then we get to Liberation of the Daleks, and I must say I love the visual design of this opening panel here. It's a real throwback to the sort of the movie Daleks, and I really, really like it a whole lot. But yeah, the story is basically, I'm not going to give you a full rundown, but I will say basically what happens is, in the last issue, the Daleks were basically invading the weird kind of entertainment center that was based on the Daleks. And due to the fact that these Daleks aren't actually real, they're kind of simulated constructs, they kind of dissolve away. But the Doctor basically gets told to leave after being a bit aggressive towards one of the security members, and he time travels forward a day only to see, presumably, the Daleks have completely taken over, which is really interesting. I must say, the art for this one in particular, like I said, is really, really nice. I don't know, like the sort of shading and just like the colours, they really pop in this one. So yeah, good job to all the artists. I'm terrible at art, but this looked really good to me. And that's about it for the things I wanted to cover. Obviously, as I said, I'll probably do a separate video on Doomsday and like each of the parts, because it's a lot to cover, and I think if I covered that in this video as well, then this video would be way, way too long. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think about any of this. In conclusion, my main points are, I'm really, really glad the 2025 season is well underway. It really feels like they're just really on top of things, and I really, really do appreciate that. Like, it feels as though Doctor Who's going to be consistent, which I know is something that Russell set out for from day one, and I'm really happy to see that. There's a couple of interesting quotes from him, a couple of interesting quotes with regards to production and stuff like that. Another really solid issue. You know, I've really been enjoying the little tidbits and stuff like this. You know, there hasn't been like a major announcement in here, but to be fair, you know, we had like the last 2 major announcements pretty recently, so we don't really need another casting announcement or anything like that within Doctor Who magazine, so I think there's plenty of content, and like I say, you get the whole, like, first, like, 5 hours of Doomsday for free on this magazine. Like, it's really, really strong issue, in my opinion. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.